In 1970, a small Texas company designed the blueprint for a computer chip and then rejected it. Too slow, they decided. Not good enough for what they needed. So Intel, the company they'd hired to build it, kept the design instead and turned it into a product of their own. That rejected design became the Intel 8008, the direct ancestor of the Intel 8080, then the entire x86 architecture. The instruction set still running inside the overwhelming majority of desktop and laptop computers on Earth, right now, today. The company that turned it down barely gets a mention in most histories of computing at all. This is the story of Datapoint, the company that helped invent the architecture the entire modern computer industry still runs on, and walked away from it. The story starts with two engineers, Phil Ray and Gus Roche, who'd been working together on NASA's Apollo program in the mid-1960s. In July 1968, they founded a company in San Antonio, Texas, called Computer Terminal Corporation, CTC for short. The idea was simple. At the time, accessing a mainframe computer usually meant using a noisy, slow teletype machine. Ray and Roche wanted to build something better. A smart terminal, a self-contained box that could replace it. Their first product, the Datapoint 3300, was an immediate hit at a computer trade show. The company raised $4 million in an IPO in 1969, and within a year, its stock price had climbed from $8 to $45.
CTC's next project was even more ambitious, a successor terminal called the Datapoint 2200 that would fix problems with the earlier model, including serious overheating issues. The engineering team, led by Victor Poor and Harry Pyle, designed a new architecture for the 2200's internal processor, but instead of building it from dozens of separate chips the way computers normally worked at the time, they wanted the entire processor condensed onto a single chip. That kind of single-chip processor barely existed yet commercially. CTC co-founder Gus Roche took the design to a small company primarily known for making memory chips, Intel. According to accounts from people involved, Intel co-founder Bob Noyce was intrigued but skeptical. He reportedly told Roche it was a smart idea, but a dumb move business-wise. With a single processor chip, you can only sell one chip per computer. With memory, you can sell dozens. Still, Intel agreed to build it under contract for CTC. But Intel couldn't deliver fast enough. CTC needed the 2200 ready for its launch date, and Intel's chip wasn't performing well enough and wasn't ready in time. So CTC made a decision that, in hindsight, is almost hard to believe. They walked away from the chip entirely. The Datapoint 2200 shipped in 1970 using the older method instead, around 100 separate conventional chips wired together, rather than the single-chip design CTC itself had specified. And here's the detail that makes this story remarkable. CTC hadn't paid the full $50,000 contract fee for the chip design. Under the terms of that arrangement, the intellectual property reverted to Intel instead. Intel had a nearly finished processor chip, designed to CTC's exact specifications, and full rights to do whatever they wanted with it.
Intel renamed the chip the 8008 and put it in their product catalog in April 1972, priced at $120. It became a genuine commercial success in its own right, but its real significance wouldn't become clear for years. The 8008 became the direct ancestor of the Intel 8080, the chip that powered the Altair 8800 and effectively launched the home computer revolution. And the 8080's instruction set architecture became the foundation for what we now call x86. x86 is still, to this day, the dominant architecture running inside the vast majority of desktop and laptop computers made by companies like Dell, HP, and Lenovo, all tracing their processor's fundamental design lineage back to a chip that started as a rejected order from a small Texas terminal company. CTC's engineers, in a very real sense, fathered the instruction set architecture that would go on to define most of personal computing for the next 50 years. They just weren't the ones who got to keep it. To be fair to Datapoint, and this matters for understanding the full story, walking away from the 8008 wasn't necessarily an irrational decision, given what they actually needed at the time. The 2200 sold well using its conventional chip design. The company, renamed Datapoint Corporation in 1973, kept innovating in its own direction. In 1977, Datapoint introduced ArcNet, one of the earliest commercial local area networking technologies, letting multiple computers share data over a network, years before this became standard practice. Datapoint also developed its own programming language and continued building intelligent terminal and computing systems that found real, sustained commercial success through the 1970s and into the early 1980s. This wasn't a company that simply made one bad call and vanished. For over a decade, Datapoint was a genuinely significant, innovative technology company in its own right.
Then, in 1982, everything changed. Datapoint's stock crashed dramatically after the company disclosed accounting irregularities. Specifically, questions about how the company had been recognizing revenue on sales, inflating reported earnings. The company's leadership faced intense scrutiny. Investor trust, built over more than a decade, evaporated quickly. Datapoint spent the following years trying to recover, but never regained its former standing. In 1985, corporate raider Asher Edelman took control of the company, and the business began fragmenting. Its services division spun off into a separate company, Logic Trace, which itself later collapsed into bankruptcy in 1995. Datapoint limped forward through the 1990s, launching occasional new products, but never returning to genuine industry relevance. On May 3, 2000, Datapoint Corporation filed for bankruptcy. So, what actually happened to Datapoint? This isn't a simple story of one bad decision destroying a company. Datapoint thrived for over a decade after walking away from the chip that became the 8008. The accounting scandal a decade later is really what triggered its long decline. But there's a genuine, lasting irony sitting at the center of this story. A small Texas terminal company specified the architecture for what would become the most successful processor lineage in computing history and let it go over a $50,000 contract dispute and a missed deadline. Today, billions of computers run on processors whose fundamental instruction set traces back to a rejected order from a company most people have never heard of. Intel built an empire on a chip Datapoint didn't want. Datapoint built a real, successful company on the decision to walk away from it, right up until an accounting scandal ended with the missed chip deal never did. Sometimes the biggest mistake in a company's history isn't the one that kills it. It's the one that just quietly changes what could have been, while the company itself goes on, for years, never quite realizing what it gave away. If you found this one interesting, next time we're covering another company that helped build the future and let someone else keep it. Subscribe so you don't miss it.